Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we are going to continue our look at painting the ADEPTA Sororitas from Mcfarlane Toys, and in this video, we are going to begin work on her cloak, or I don't know, it's a half cloak thing. It's not quite a cloak, I don't know what it is. Here, I'm just illustrating that this has already been primed, and I'm just really kind of illustrating how bendy this material is, and the primer seems to hold just fine. So we're going to get started with some red brown from Tamiya Xf7. We're going to use some X20A thinner from Tamiya, and we're going to use a Badger Patriot 105 to apply this at around 25 psi. And so as I mentioned, this has already been primed, and this is a light gray from Stanilres that I've used. Anybody who's curious, I guess I was at around 20-25 psi when I applied that as well. And with this red-brown color, we are going to do the interior of the cloak first, which is going to be a red. So as I had illustrated previously on the sleeves using a brown before applying the red, I'm going to follow suit with that and basically begin laying this onto the surfaces. And here you can see I'm laying it down. I'm spraying kind of straight at the material, because it is highly textured, and if you spray from one particular direction, you'll leave little gray spots in places, so you kind of have to be mindful of that. You can see like on the side there, you can see how there's a lot of gray showing through, so we got to carefully move through there. The amount of thinner I'm using is probably a little bit more than the recommended amount. I nicked that little part there, you can see, so that's why I went back over that little spot. Anyway, it's probably a little bit more than the recommended amount. We're going to jump into some flat red Xf7 here next with some thinner, of course. And again, as I was talking about the thinner, I'm probably going like, it said recommended it's like 1 to 5, and I'm probably doing more like 1 to 3 kind of thing. It's just so that I can basically lay this in very, very thin amounts. When you are working with it in a fairly thin consistency like this, I do recommend working a little bit closer to your material. You might even need to turn your PSI down. I didn't change PSI at all. It's just a cautionary thing for the rest of you out there who are perhaps following along. As I'm working with this, I'm still working with the Patriot 105 as I'm applying this in fairly broad strokes here. So, and I'm trying to lay more of the red down onto the bottom portion. Really, the brown was just serving as a bit of shadow, and of course, you know, some deeper tones and a base to build on. So I didn't have to lay like a bazillion different layers of red down, so that I can get a nice, good, strong, vibrant red. And as you can see, we just simply go along, and I'm trying to keep more of the color down towards the bottom just for aesthetic's sake. We're going to use some flat red and some flat yellow Xf3 from Tamiya. We're going to use some thinner, of course. I'm going to switch over to a Renegade Chrome, still spraying at around 25 psi. It's like 20-25 psi. I don't recall what it was. And after just a quick little test here, basically just make sure that the paint is flowing properly. And again, I'm still staying with that similar kind of mixture. And these brush strokes I'm using here are more towards the bottom of the cloak. And I'm not looking to create a huge amount of contrast, just enough to really kind of make it visually interesting, just a little bit of brightness at the bottom there. Again, with this figure, I'm not looking for huge jumps in contrast and, you know, the like, just because it's, you know, it's a big scale model, and I don't really feel that a whole lot of miniature painting techniques do really apply here, as the surfaces are quite large. We're going to jump over to some German gray Xf3, some X20A thinner, and we're going to jump back over to our Patriot 105, again still spraying at a 25 psi, just check and flow. You can see I cleared the work surface here, just because as the model is kind of moving around on the surface, I just don't want it picking up any of the paint that's still on the work surface. So that's why you'll see it gets periodically cleaned between steps, kind of thing. Here I'm just laying this gray down, trying to stay pretty even to the surface, kind of try to spray straight at, so that I don't get it too much overspray onto the red sections, and of course also so that the paint does go into the nooks and crannies, as they are kind of a forward-facing kind of detail, as it were. And it's a fairly straightforward process as we lay this gray down. And then I can give the model a quick little look to make sure that I'm not missing any points. And if I am, I come back in and spray those areas down. And of course, this is basically so that we can begin laying in some light gray. I'm going to chuck it right into the remainder of what I've got there. Basically, I add, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 drops of the light gray, and there was already like 8 drops of the German gray in there. And really what I was just looking for was like more of a closer to what would be about a 50-50 mixture of the two. And with this, I kind of spray downwards, but also it's more like a 45-degree angle to the surface. Whereas before I was working kind of perpendicular to it, like a 90-degree angle. And here I'm kind of spraying at a slight angle here, so I still retain some of that dark gray in the nooks and crannies and in some of the deeper shadows, because I do want to preserve those. And I'm doing a bit of a zenithal type of lighting here, so it's kind of a straight down lighting. If I was really more concerned about, like, I guess, like the scale of this, I probably could have just done a light gray, did a slight shade wash, and then applied the white. But here, here we are. Light gray all on its own. I'm going to switch over to my Renegade Chrome because we're going to work in closer and a little bit more, deliberate as where we're applying the color. Again, we're sticking with more of a straight down kind of angle. That's why it just looks kind of funny here because, we can't really see exactly what I'm doing. But as I move the bit around, you will see how the gray is kind of poking through and hiding. And really with these strokes here, I'm just simply catching those kind of 3 big features on the cloth here. The 2 big folds running down, and then also bring some more color up towards the hips, as you can see here. And I do this on both sides of the cloth, and then spray straight down that big fold, and this is over her bottom. So I do want to capture some of this as it will help, kind of illustrate the lighting on this figure. Of course, as I mentioned in previous videos, when doing this kind of scale modeling type of thing, you're relying more on flat surfaces and maybe just a little bit of bringing textures out and bringing visual interest in, just for visual sake, really. But otherwise, you don't really have to treat it like a miniature. We're going to jump over to flat white Xf7 with some X20 thinner. Again, I'm working with the paint probably in a little bit more thinner than is what is recommended, but that's just so that I can slowly build up to my desired effect. Here you're not going to see a great deal because, well, I wasn't mindful of my camera. I was right into what I was painting, but really I'm just spraying straight down at that surface because I want to really kind of bring out that texture in the cloth, because the cloth itself is highly textured. It's very, very textured, which is really quite impressive for such a soft material as this. And it's really quite interesting. And like this stuff is like it's like rubber. And again, I carry on spraying straight down, so you don't really quite see the whole process itself. But trust me, bro. After this layering, you can see how I was pretty much going about this. And then of course I also put about another layer on, so it really build up the white. And here you can see how I brought some up close to the hips, keeping the brightness at the bottom of the cloth, and then allowing that, because we maintained that direction of where we were spraying, you can see how we have all our little texture and everything. You can see all the little dark gray spots all over the place. We're going to jump over to some flat black Xf1. I'm going to switch brushes here. I'm going to grab my base coating brush for this, and just really quickly, no thinners or anything like that, and I just begin laying this on. And again, I'm not too worried about handling the material because, again, Tamiya paints seem to finish to be a quite durable paint, and so that's why I wasn't really too concerned about having something to hold on to this bit while I was working on it. I don't show it here, but I also paint that belt kind of feature on there, so it's just meeting it right up against the cloth, and that's after 1 layering of the black. And so I decide, no, it needs another layer. So I come back in and lay another layer down. And unlike acrylic paints, our water-based acrylic paints, I find that the way that these Tamiya paints dry, they don't really leave a lot of brush strokes behind. I think that's because of the nature of the alcohol in the paint, and when it dries, it reduces right down to the surface. I mean, if you really lay it really kind of ham-fisted on, I'm sure your brush strokes will show up. But as I was scrubbing it around and everything like that, I didn't find that there was any really a lot of brush strokes. Gold Leaf is next, X12, right out of the bottle. Again, we're using the same brush. And a bit like an overbrushing, we're going to catch just the high points of the filigree inside this detail here. I have no idea what this detail is. It's some sort of, imperial, religious meaning. Sure, right? Reasons, plot. And with this, again, it's kind of like an overbrushing, so there is a little bit of that white poking in between there. You can see here we're just catching just the high points. It's kind of like dry brushing, but it's, there's a lot of paint on the bristles, and it's really just a matter of control to just get those high points. It's really easy. It's not terribly difficult. And I just quickly do 2 little layerings on there. We're going to jump over to the flat red again, Xf7, and we're going to switch over to our detail brush. And these are all synthetic brushes that I'm using, so any synthetic brushes that you have. And the only reason I use synthetics with these paints is because in my cleaning process, I use a lot of iso alcohol to clean the paint off the bristles, and it does a good job of that. But if I was using my sables, that would dry the hairs out, and I would constantly be having to recondition the bristles. So once that is taken care of and we've got all that done, we're going to jump over to some raw umber hue from Golden paint. We're going to use a drop of Liquitex Flow Aid, and we're going to just throw 2 drops onto our palette and add a drop or 2, just for gigs, into the mixture. No water is used to thin this out, and I just basically start filling in the details and allowing to pool into the recesses, change the values of the gold. I also applied over the red, really just to kind of help with a bit of kind of like a black lining technique. It's something common in miniature painting where we create separators in details and such by having dark contrasting colors reside in the recesses and things like that, and that's often referred to as black lining. Here you can see there's a little bit too much color on some of those areas, so I just quickly dampen my brush and then just feather that out. And I actually considered kind of making it kind of dirty on the bottom of the cloth. Once it's dry, I come back in and apply another quick little layering, and I only applied on the upper half of the gold detail, just giving us a bit more contrast. And also, I just wanted a little bit more darkness, and of course I apply a little bit around the red trim as well, just to create a little bit more separator there. But of course, once it is all set and done, it is dry, and that is the cloth. Of course, we should probably complete those buckles, those little studs on her torso and everything like that, and maybe we'll take care of that later on, because the main torso has to have that as well. But either way, stay tuned for the next part. I think we're going to work on the belt. Big thank you to my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. There are various tiers to support, and a huge, huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.